Welcome to this second session of SIP 2026 Social Justice. In the first session, we have already dealt with the overview of how social justice part differs from the society, how vulnerable section wale questions actually appear, what sort of details must be prepared from it, and also two very central topic which are health and education, and what sort of dimensions uh, actually appear in the exam from that vast topic. Also, we tried to discuss a bit about uh, what sort of uh, preparation is particularly needed with respect to the details, with respect to the data, with respect to the background analysis regarding laws and organizations that is necessary. In this second session, I would be discussing majorly about the developmental processes, developmental sector, welfare policies. Here, I have realized that the established coachings, the established resources actually fail in delivering what central idea of these policies is. Secondly, what sort of issues lie therein and what sort of way forward must be there. I am giving a specific detailed analysis for this topic, particularly here, because the the keywords, the concepts, the recommendations, the basic principles behind tackling these issues can be cross utilizable in across these topics. Also, if you have gone through the PYQs and have a experience of mains, you would know that इसमें लोग आईआर पगलू बन जाते हैं. लाइक आईआर के 4 क्वेश्चन आते हैं जीएस 2 में और they'll spend 50-60 hours for the आईआर पार्ट. उसमें से भी 2 क्वेश्चन तो ऐसा है कि यू कैन राइट एनी डे एनी नाइट, मतलब उसमें कोई प्रेप का जरूरत ही नहीं है. ऑन द कॉन्ट्ररी, सोशल जस्टिस, सोशल सेक्टर, डेवलपमेंटल सेक्टर एक ऐसा पार्ट है जहां से हर साल 4 से 5 क्वेश्चन आते हैं. वो क्वेश्चन कंपैरेटिवली ट्रिकियर रहते हैं क्योंकि उनको समझ के लिखना पड़ता है, बट पीपल डोंट prepare them. In my 4 years of like mains experience, I have never scored less than 107 marks in GS2, and मैं कभी IR पढ़ता नहीं था. मेरा सेंट्रल फोकस ही था कि सोशल सेक्टर, डेवलपमेंटल सेक्टर, सोशल जस्टिस, पॉलिटी के जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल्स एक्ट वाले क्वेश्चन है, कंपैरेटिव पॉलिटी वाले क्वेश्चंस है, गवर्नेंस वाले क्वेश्चंस है, वो क्वेश्चंस अच्छे करो क्योंकि आई फेल्ट कि वो क्वेश्चन लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट है. आई फेल्ट कि वो उन क्वेश्चंस में डिफरेंस बनाना बहुत आसान है कंपैरेटिवली कि आईआर में, कंपैरेटिवली कि पॉलिटी के बेसिक क्वेश्चंस में. तो मेरे लिए ये 10 क्वेश्चन बहुत ही सेंट्रल थीम रहता था. एंड while while attempting these questions, I took care of certain things with me, and those concepts were something which I have developed from my understanding, my reading, and also working with public policy, with government also. So some of the concepts which I'll be discussing today itself are something which are new, unique, and what I can say novel. To talk about developmental sector, first we need to know what public policy is. This public policy, what public policy is and how it constitutes a scheme of things, this can be used, this concept can be used in questions related to welfare schemes, in question related to governance, in question related to NGO. And if you know these things, no, this structural template and the key phrases that I would be using, use them as per your liberty, as per your understanding, internalize them. They are gonna be a differentiating factor and actually something of a nuance which can you use in justifying the demand of the question. Here, first and foremost, you need to understand what public policy is. So public policy is any government action done for a social welfare goal. So what they do there, they set up an agenda. Agenda is of social welfare in general, but particularly in can be improvement of nutrition, improvement of health indicators, improvement of sanitation, drinking to water access or rights or anything else. Then depending upon agenda, they make a agenda formulation. So scheme of things, a quantitative scheme of things is prepared based on a qualitative agenda. And when that agenda in a quantitative form is present, government takes decisions based on, number one, how to actually implement it, what sort of machinery needs to be used, what sort of funding needs to be mobilized for the successful implementation of the scheme and achievement of the agenda. And based on this, a policy is adopted, and this policy adoption leads to implementation of the policy. And policy adoption and policy implementation is actually a cyclical process whereby there is a continuous evaluation for it, and based on that evaluation we can actually go back to the like if there are any challenges with respect to the implementation, or let's say the qualitative and quantitative agendas which were formulated for a particular goal, they actually need revision. Or I would say, rather than like a minuscule or qualitative focus, if let's say there is a overall broadened uh, the fault line lies in the concept itself. So that agenda revision, the agenda setting revision itself can be done. So to give an example, let's say if someone wants to work for a women empowerment, then the agenda formulation can be based on providing them reservations, or providing them with let's say the scheme of things for their protection at the workforce. There can be a legal scheme, there can be a policy scheme, there can be some measures or some favors that can exist. But however, this formulation can be revised in terms of the empowerment based approach or the provision based approach. Let's say the same women empowerment can be done by providing them with freebies also, by providing them with money also. So I hope you are getting the differentiation. The Though the end goal lies the same, there are various approaches for it. So the formulation actually is related to the granular and how to do it, and agenda setting is related to what to do it. So changes in both of them can be done, and depending on that, policy formulations, policy revisions, uh, and all of the things are being done in public policy. Always and always look forward for, if let's say there is a dearth of points, and if you don't know where to understand what points to develop, what approach to uh, adopt, always look for these stakeholders are political executive, then there is bureaucracy, the permanent executive, then there are citizens, which are actually not only a passive recipient of things but an active contributor and participant in the developmental processes. Then there is a market is there for the mobilization of resources to bring in innovation, to actually channelize efforts in a diffused as well as concentrated manner. Diffusion should be in terms of the uh, spatial and organizational capabilities, and concentration in terms of the particularity of approaches that they will follow. Then of course there is civil society, which is like central part of developmental sector, which is NGOs, charities, charitable trusts. CSR is also there, which is also reflected in GS-4 part of the syllabus. And then of course there is judiciary to ensure that there is transparency, accountability, and judicious utilization of funds, and then to bring in reforms in all of this and ensure that the process of public policy is conducted as per the rule of law. Here I have identified or tried to give you a framework upon what sort of issues that exist in public policy in India. So these questions in public policy can be utilized in terms of issues in what are issues in developmental sector, what are issues in the schemes that we have, what are issues in particularly related to let's say current the developmental paradigm that we have. So every part of it you can actually pick up keywords from it and utilize it there. You utilize this understanding everywhere. So first and foremost issue is of uh, fragmentation. So our entire public policy, our entire developmental approach is fragmented. To give you an example, the transport sector in India is actually comes under five different ministries. Same goes with infrastructure. Infrastructure comes under I think six different ministries. So if there is fragmentation of a particular sector under various ministries, then how can a concentrated and a collaborative efforts be there, and it leads to imbalance and misguided approaches. Second is poor shift to neoliberalism. Unclear role of, I have talked about role of markets, but our public policy, our developmental processes do not accord congenial and favorable role to the markets. So they lack the clarity in their roles. They lack congenial environment for participation in the developmental processes, since the state remains to be the largest player in the developmental processes. Citizens and market are often accorded secondary status. So this poor shift to neoliberalism has led to uh, uh, the the stagnation in terms of processes, the uh, bureaucracy centric, uh, rule centric schemes implementation. There is rigidity in approaches and all of the things, the keywords that you would know. Third thing is agencyfication. So what happens, most of the schemes, developmental initiative, developmental processes, they work on top down approach. Secondly, they are majorly convenience based. So to give you an example, uh, there are four different schemes in the textile ministry which talk about giving one time machinery or one time relief. However, there is a no single scheme which actually talks about differentiable and new skill development in the embroidery building, in the textile manufacturing, or etc. Similarly, so since these are convenience based, there is this one size fits all approach. So if you can go anywhere in any of the schemes, you will be having one scheme which is credit guarantee scheme, credit availability scheme. The model would be the same, but and the challenges would be the same. Neither the challenges are handled nor the benefits are gained for it. Fourth thing would be the poor quality of the developmental processes. Why poor quality? Firstly, there is no end user based feedback mechanism. Talk about the MSME schemes. There are 59-minute loans for the MSMEs. How, however, if you actually talk to a MSME owner, they would say all of these lies in paper, and their actual needs of the export promotion, their actual needs of the uh, reducing regulatory burden are often unheard, and the focus is on like grandiorness of the benefits that people are getting. Second would be the poor cost benefit analysis, and like extension of it is no regression and forecasting modeling. So to give you an example, the environmental impact assessment, there is always a cost benefit analysis for it. Or let's say the deforestation of a forest, conversion of forest land to a non-forest purposes. In all of it, there's a cost benefit analysis, and they talk about what sort of benefits a community, a nation, a society is getting from doing an action which is on encroachment, which is negative to the environment, which actually detriments our natural resources. Only if the commensurate benefits in the social economic way are obtained, such project should get the nod of approval. Such extensive analysis is absent, and you would know, I mean, what sort of issues are there in EIA, what sort of issues are there in CRZ. Similar is the case with the Forest Conservation Act. They have recently gave permission for the conversion of forest land to the non-forest purposes within the 100 kilometer from the border area.
Recent case is this Andaman Nicobar वाला जो
Yes,
controversy है ना
yes,
कि
great, great,
they are trying
great
to plant
Nicobar
same thing in
Island project.
Haryana.
Exactly.
How can you compensate in the Haryana
Yes,
the importance of eco-sensitive zone that is Andaman Nicobar? How can we match the level in Haryana?
yes. The next challenge next would be Chakravyuh challenge. So this was first appeared in the 2017 economic survey, and this is like my evergreen point. And this sounds fancy, and I know like very few people are writing it. Chakravyuh challenge means that in India there is beginning for everything, but there is no end. You can enter into anything, but you cannot come out of it. Very great example for it is the PDS system or the MSPs. Even though there are number of challenges that exist, you cannot come out of that system. Similar is the case with the the uh, freebies also. Now once you have started the freebies, you there is no going back, there is no coming back. That would be established as a new paradigm. So you get actually trapped in Chakravyuh, and which leads to poor utilization of resources, faulty expenditure of public exchequer, and most importantly the actually utilizable public funds are spent on a wasteful activities. And last but not the least is the populism, which is new and emerging phenomenon. In addition to that, there is inclusion and exclusion errors, which is seventh. So this is known and unknown. So there is a lack of identity. Then, if there is identity, then the baseline surveys are poor. If baseline surveys are there, they are often inappropriate, incorrect, and this leads to poor targeting, and the actual benefits are not being shared with the those who actually deserve
रिसेंटली
it.
अभी एमजी नरेगा में एक तो केस स्टडी भी आई थी इस साल एथिक्स में उसी चीज के ऊपर, और अभी
Yes.
रिसेंटली कुछ इंक्लूजन एक्सक्लूजन एरर भी दिखे हैं जो रिसेंट अपडेशन हुआ है मस्टर रोल्स के अंदर एमजी नरेगा के, तो यू कैन कोट दैट.
Yes. So, Abhi, these frameworks, these keywords, this understanding is the crux for understanding and writing every issue related to development sector. Please, please, like internalize them, understand them, have a bit of examples or descriptions here and there by your understanding. Don't go into reading second year acid report. Don't go into reading another Pinaki Chakravarti report or many other things. Just I have condensed it this thing for you, and most of these things are from the established literature, and also many of these are actually from my understanding of while working with MHA and other public policy related bodies. Now what to do? Again, same framework, I'll be giving you a template. Just focus on it, on this template, and utilize it these points everywhere. First is have a central liaison for development, central liaison for public policy, central liaison for the implementation, evaluation, and monitoring. Currently, though, there is Niti Ayog, but Niti Ayog's role has been more on the academic side rather than on the policy side. Secondly, there is a important need for academia development linkage. This point तो I write everywhere. SHG हो, NGO हो, cooperatives हो, developmental sector हो, पंचायत का issues हो, किसी का भी issue हो. If there is academic development linkage, then you can actually do anything and everything. You can use youth, you can use volunteerism, you can use innovation, you can use experts. One of prominent example here is Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. There is another thing called as SIIRD. So these are actually carried out in IITs. So you can like code them. Third thing is principle of subsidiarity. That's it. If you know, like since there is a issue of agencyfication going from top to bottom, principle of subsidiarity would ensure that there is empowerment based approach. There is a uh, uh, local need, local resources local agency based approach, then synergy, coordination and team spirit between various agencies, like various stakeholders in the market, the NGOs, citizens, and again you can add one to as a government. So with these synergy and team spirit, this was questioned in 2019. I i think what would be the benefits from this synergy and team spirit, use that point to actually ensure that there should be this. And then use of technology, big data, GIS. Even in the Narega they are having the geotagging for the developmental assets. Even the land records are being used with the help of big data. There is big data utilization in the CAG audits as well. So you can quote it here and there, but main crux lies in the fact that I have actually given you a list of keywords to actually utilize and improvise upon in the actual exam.
Now this will also happen, help you in, if any question comes ki design a policy. Interview में तो बहुत होता है कि they'll
Yes.
ask you to design a policy, or they'll ask you to what problems can you think. So this will give you a framework how to think. For example, with respect to stakeholders, Nikhil was telling, na, same stakeholders I tell in ethics course also. If anything, we talk about minimum government, maximum governance. This is what we talk about, ki reducing the role of government and increasing the role of third sector, that is civil society, NGOs, and private sector, and the citizens also. So you have a general framework what all issues take place, or which what all issues actually appear during the formulation, implementation, and this feedback mechanisms, or also what should be the general way forward, or what things you can suggest. For example, the data collection I always drop as a first point whenever there is a suggestion for any policy formulation. Ki first of all, I'll collect the data,
Yes.
then I'll start
Take
thinking
stock,
where
stock of the
I need.
situation.
Then I'll start thinking, analyzing ki where I will need the funds and where I'll have to mobilize the staff, etc., etc. है ना? So this is the basic framework. This was very nice.
And then moving forward, in developmental sector they particularly task, and even like the syllabus mentions the role of NGOs. Here what happens, people actually write examples rather than writing what their actual role is. Again, the main issue about argument versus example. So I have again like framed a beautiful uh, uh, argument structure for it. So first would be like they act as a watchdog. So they acting as a watchdog. See, I have prepared a list of things for it. I hope like you are able to see it. I just noted down what keyword would be there and one two examples for it. So for example, for watchdog, it can be PUCL, it can be PRS. For agitator for rights, they are like NAS Foundation for the same sex and homosexuals, for the LGBTQ rights, service providers, which can be in the form of Akshay Patra, the mobilization of public opinion. So, hashtag save the internet. They actually mobilize public opinion in favor of net neutrality. Similarly, there are for advocacy for change, advocacy for the MKSS. They actually brought down the change in the how transparency and accountability framework exist in India via the support and agitation for the RTI. Similarly, the most important is de-radicalization. So what happens if there is civil society, and via civil society, if you can actually give expression to your grievances, you don't go to the part of radicalization. Rather, you actually utilize the present channels which are like peaceful, which are legitimate, and which actually are heard by the government and by the citizens also. So de-radicalization is one of the main feature of the NGOs, of the civil society, of the cooperatives, and all the similar social developmental uh, sector or organizations. So Van Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram is one of those NGOs which have been actually credited and acclaimed for their role in working with the tribals and actually de-radicalizing those from the Naxal intensive operations. And of course the environmental protection. You can use the same framework, same thing for having cooperatives, for having pressure groups also. Role of pressure groups is also along the similar line. Also role of women organization is along the same line. You can pick up keywords from here and there and actually
Now,
build your arguments around it.
now let's say the question comes in the mains examination ki what evaluate the effectiveness of women's organization in the post independence movement, post independence India, है ना? तो अब we do not read these things as a separate topic, but now as we have a general framework how to think, so we can think on the lines ki they must be agitating for the rights, they must be the watchdogs, they must be the service providers, they must be the this advocacy for the change, de-radicalization. So we got the ideas ki what things or what functions could have been of these organizations or the civil society or the pressure groups or etc etc. If there are some exclusive functions, we'll note it down. If there are some general guideline, general thinking ideas, we'll note it down, and whenever the question will come, we'll start thinking on the same line. Now second thing is we are there's always a two-way thinking, है ना? For example, we have to think ki what role could women organization, cooperatives or NGOs have been doing, है ना? So we'll think about these topics, है ना? कि they might be agitating, they might be service provider, but sometimes in case study I was reading yesterday the ethics case studies, so we have a problem, है ना, at our disposal to solve. So when we have a problem, we generally face a problem ki what was किसको बुलाएं, which stakeholder should we call in to solve this problem. So for one way is that we are thinking ki NGOs will solve this problem, NGOs will do these functions. We can also think the other way around ki this function, who will carry out this function. So when we are actually finding out who will carry out this function, we can think of NGOs. So this is the two way thinking, A to B, B to A.
Yes, that's a very good way to look at it. And the Nandini pointed out that I should like explain de-radicalization wala role once more time. So let me like explain you in a bit more detail. Uh, there is a GS3 topic which talks about linkages between development and and extremism. It says that lack of development actually leads to extremism, and that is what is being observed in the case of Naxalism, in secessionism, in terrorism, and etc. In all of those security related challenges. So the entire philosophy is that if people are facing certain grievances and if there is a lack of development in it, first they try and seek to address their grievances by legitimate and established political measures. Either they will go to Gram Sabha, either they will go to PRIs, either they will go to DM's office, either they will go to the Tehsildar or the MLA or the MPs. If their grievances are addressed in the executive, in the legislative, and the judicial organs of the state, they would get their grievances addressed and continue to participate in the developmental processes as an active and aware citizen of the country. However, what happens if their grievances are not addressed by the legitimate and established state and political framework? There is a good chance that they actually uh, dev- develop a sense of dissatisfaction with the social contract that exists between citizen and state, and they try to negate the legitimacy of the state as they feel that their issues, their needs, their development is not addressed by the present day state. So what they do, they try and indulge with non-legitimate and non-state related activities. One of the example for it is Pathal Gadi movement in
Exactly.
the left-wing extremism areas of the Jharkhand. There, what they are doing, the tribals actually lay a stone on in front of their village, and they declare that the legitimate uh, institutions of state, they have no relationship with them, and gradually they move away from it. And there is a potent fertile background for the non-state actors to actually work in those communities and develop and channelize the sense of disaffection with the state in the form of violence, perpetration of violence, perpetration of terrorism, perpetration of non-state activities like secessionism, attacks, and etc. I hope I have explained it concisely, Nandini. And like this concept, see, that that's what I was saying. The concepts which I am talking today will be utilizable in across the paper. So wherever there are concepts which are needed to be discussed, I'll be discussing them. uh, Moving forward, since we have discussed the role of NGOs, I feel there are two probable areas from which questions are due from the NGOs. First is, why NGOs are better than government at certain locations, or are they actually better than NGOs? Since this marketization, private versus government debate has actually been asked in the health, which we have discussed yesterday. This NGO versus government debate can actually be asked in the mains as well. Secondly, what are legal and constitutional provisions for them? Since like if we would be discussing about the multiplicity of uh, legal provisions, policy provisions which are there, and what are recommendations of second ARC, recommendations of S Vijay Kumar committee with respect to them, you should know like what are legal and constitutional provisions for it. In addition to that, I would be giving you certain pointers again. Like I feel these kind of pointers are not present in any form of material. Even like I feel they are unheard to market as well, since most of the pointers are actually developed by me as a as a policy recommendation to even to the ministry as well. So be conscious of them while preparing your notes and understand these concepts. Pointers would be, firstly, NGOs and SHGs and developmental sector, they face finance crunch. So for financing, you need to approach innovative approach. One of it is social stock exchange. You, of course, all of you know what social stock exchange is. Second would be innovative approach by Yashada. So Yashada is a NGO in Pune, and they actually work with civil services aspirants, and they also work for the talent grooming and all of the other things. They have unique model of financing them. They actually help people fund their RTIs, and the fees that they get from the RTI funding, they actually use in the other activities. So it's the RTI service model is excellent. What I can say, transparency, accountability, at the same time self-sustaining model. Second thing, you we need to promote volunteerism. Volunteerism can be done by social credit system. So if you like work with old age people, see, this point can be used in old age wala answer. This point can be used in case studies. This point can be used in youth. So what is social credit system? You work with old people, you work with those who are marginalized in your youth age, in your free time. You will get some kind of social credits which you can actually utilize uh, when you actually need help in your old age. Sim- Similarly, there is need for spiritualization in service. So rather than, so service to Jiva is service to Shiva, or the what the Gandhian talisman talks about, what Swami Vivekananda talks about. Even like Naman also talks about values in the education. So everywhere these point of spiritualization, spiritualism in service can be utilized. Next is three things. Firstly, S. Vijay Kumar committee recommendations. It He says that there must be a overarching regulatory framework. Since if you like go from the legal and constitutional provisions that exist, you would be knowing that there is multiplicity of laws, multiplicity of frameworks. The tax framework exists differently, the registration works differently, the accreditation works differently, and so on. So he talks about having a overarching regulatory framework. Secondly, he says that there must be integrated social sector policy. So if there is integrated policy, अब उसका डिटेल्स तुम खुद से भर लेना कि क्या होना चाहिए. Second would be, second, ARC says that there must be a comprehensive law regarding the NGOs, charitable societies, charitable trusts, and everything. Secondly, there must be a multi-member charities commission, like the charity commission that we have for the commissions that we have for most of the other developmental activities. A similar commission for the social sector, for the social development, must be there. And thirdly, there must be a charities tribunal to actually address the grievances, develop congenial environment between what you can call the government, the organization, and the citizens, and also ensure that the regulatory bottlenecks do not uh, hinder the functionality of it. Thirdly, would be accreditation and certification for the voluntary organization. That would ensure that there is no astroturfing. That would ensure that the antisocial elements surging and uh, masquerading into the developmental sector would not work. Accreditation and certification would also help in social stock exchange. It would also help in CSR activities, so that we can say that, like, these certificated social organizations would only be eligible for CSR or some other way. That way, overall the regulatory mechanism, overall regulatory framework would be streamlined. Next would be focus on capabilities. So rather than rather than providing things, so currently our social sector are NGOs, they actually work on the basis of provisioning basis. What they do, they come in, they work with the marginalized community in the form that they give them actual product. So that can be machines, that can be the credit, that can be paisa, that can be food, anything. However, the, like, they say na, you can you give uh, a fish to a man, he'll be fed for a night, and if you teach him fishing, he'll be fed for a life. So rather than like develop capabilities, rather than giving actual uh, pro- ac- actual
Those.
provision.
Hmm.
Uh, for that, graduation model of Bangladesh is is an excellent case study. This model also can be used in 3-4 places, even in GS4, in case studies, in the GS2, in the GS3, in the women empowerment in GS1, at many of the locations in poverty. The next would be coordination and team spirit. I have discussed this with academia, with the experts, with youth, and all. And then tech and capacity building with respect to big data, AI, GIS, remote sensing, and all. With respect to SHGs, there you would be knowing what are the their what they are, what their role is, what they constitute, and rest of things. Here, I would like to point you out four distinct dimensions of SHGs, and I feel question independently can come on each of the dimension, and even if question doesn't come independently on each of the dimension, you can use this framework to actually answer any questions related to role of SHGs. So first is of the poverty alleviation. So here you can talk about how SHGs actually lead to augmentation of the purchasing power, how SHGs actually lead to burden sharing, how SHGs lead to capital access, how SHGs would lead to improved and better the what you can say economies of scale and scope, etc. And अब इसमें हर एक इसमें डिस्कस कर लेना. half pager on each is very necessary. Because what I definitely feel that independent question on each of it can be possible. So role of SHGs in grassroots democracy promotion, how would that be? सब लोग एक ही चीज लिखेंगे कि कुदुम बशरी, but grassroots democracy promotion also comes within the household, also how it leads to the them women having being able to being empowered in the sphere of self regulation, self rule making, self organization and all. Similarly SHGs as a vehicle for implementation of schemes, how? Because like they ensure accountability, they ensure transparency. People who are actually similarly placed can actually be found in SHGs, and they can uh, be a arena for the actual implementation of schemes without having inclusion and exclusion errors. So please like have a framework ready with you on these 4 points. Next would be civil society, and how does civil society play like role in promotion of democracy? Here again talk about radicalization. Here again talk about their role in promoting transparency, their role in promoting accountability, their role as a mobilization of public opinion, their role as a organization and developing social capital, their role in de-radicalization, or all of it. One thing I'm very like favorable in terms of it, they may ask about impact of neoliberal paradigm, or impact of technology, or let's say they would ask why there is a significant rise in the civil society activities, civil society organizations in the recent times. This can actually be asked in GS-1 society also, and here also. And if let's say you would have a like ready-made framework in your mind na, you can use this in other aspects as well. So please be considerate of this thing. Next concept I would
Nikhil,
like to
Nikhil, एक
discuss.
second. I'll show this social SHG movement notes, है ना?
Hmm.
I have something good to show. स्क्रीन दिख रही है क्या? हाँ. कि इकोनॉमिक सर्वे 22-23 है ना, इकोनॉमिक सर्वे 2022-23, दे गेव अ वेरी नाइस डेफिनेशन एंड वर्क्स ऑफ एसएचजी, है ना. वन वाज दैट मनी हैंडलिंग, people start learning to start learning how to handle the money, है ना. Second thing is financial decision making. Then is the social network, then is the asset ownership, then is the livelihood diversification. मतलब I just wanted to highlight this कि go and read this introductory page of economic survey 2022-23. You will get a good write up on this, and you will also get a schemes, महिला सम्मान बचत पत्र 81 lakhs SHG mobilized, है ना. And then also these are the PYQs with respect to women, how SHG have helped. बीपी बेटा बाप बेटा पति सिंड्रोम, उससे इंडिपेंडेंट करवा देता है, सोशल इश्यूज हैंडल करता है, लीडरशिप प्रोवाइड करता है उनको, इकोनॉमी के लिए करता है, ठीक है. उसके बाद तो मॉडल्स वगैरह तो यू विल कलेक्ट. देन अगेन एंटी पॉवर्टी वैक्सीन, एसेट क्रिएशन, इनकम सिक्योरिटी फॉर पुअर वुमेन, फॉर एम्पावरमेंट, ठीक है. देन दीज आर ऑल these things I took out from the PYQs, है ना. The end this I took out from economic survey 2022-23. So do read introductory page or conclusion on of this survey. You will get a good notes. ठीक है, चलो. ठीक है, you
Then
can.
I would like to. So there was this question on in 2018-19, I guess, which talked about the how successive governments actually performed in terms of their poverty alleviation journey. So I mean, such question can be repeated once again, but I when I was preparing for it, I have realized that this can be repeated in any other form. I mean, they will say about the hunger They might ask about the health, they might ask about the successive government performed in terms of capacity building, human development, or any sort of thing. Then I went back to the drawing board and found, if is there any academic basis for, on the basis of which the developmental processes uh, can be differentiated into various paradigms. So I got a sense of things from the fact that yes, there are four different paradigms. First paradigm was of the 1940s, 50s, 60s, just post independence, which was of Fabian socialism. There, they majorly talked about distribution of resources and ensured that citizens were mere passive recipients of the developmental processes. There wasn't any active participation of either NGOs, either citizens, or of the market. Then came the era of productive welfareism of 70s and 80s. So gradually, government started to realize that making simply giving citizens the resources wouldn't make much of a difference. There must be productive capacity building as well. So they increased the social sector spending. So there was this national education policy of 1986, and then there was national health policy as well. Then they started schemes related to food for work. Then there are skill developmental initiatives. So that was the productive well uh, welfareism. Then came the era of neoliberal paradigm. Then shift from the state. Now the shift took from the state to the market. So market oriented capacity building initiatives were there in 1990s and early 200s. So their skilling was there. Then the participation of market in mobilization of resources was carried out. There was concept of CSR, there was concept of charity. All of it got actually inculcated in our developmental paradigm. And now the contemporary paradigm is of rights based productive welfareism. What it means, we are looking at citizens in terms of active participants also, but also something which is non-negotiable, as it is sort of their right. So there we are trying to focus on human capacity building via initiatives like Ayushman Bharat, via initiatives like Skill India Mission. Then there are women empowerment missions, Kiran hai. Then another thing which actually is for Sabala hai. So I hope you got the gist. So you can use these keywords, these approaches. If, let's say, there is a question by any chance comes which talks about uh, the evaluating successive governments and their performance. I hope, like, developmental sector, I have covered this very comprehensively, and I feel this is a very low scoring, very low effort area, but high scoring area, if you can actually devote a bit bit of time and understand the basics, the concepts, the templates which lie beneath it. Moving on to the next and last two topics, which are like poverty and hunger. So generally, the syllabus subhead is issues related to poverty and hunger. So they always ask about why poverty, why hunger. So there are issues related to it, there are issues related to it. However, since we have discussed so much about what what are challenges in the developmental processes, how developmental activities actually took place, how successive governments addressed, had agenda of development in their mind. So always and always incorporate one aspect of issues in the scheme or issues in the developmental paradigm, as when you talk about why poverty and hunger. This discussion would bring nuance, and this discussion will separate your answer from the normal जनता की, मतलब हंगर क्यों है भाई, नहीं मिल रहा, मतलब कि पीडीएस का इश्यूज है, मिलेट का इशू है, जो भी इशू है, मतलब अब वो uske pare you are giving something of quality, something of qualitative discussion, something of discourse, something of nuance. And also always incorporate poverty if you are discussing about hunger, and also incorporate hunger if you are discussing about poverty. While particularly talking about poverty, recently the uh, government of India shifted from the $2.15 to the $3 as a poverty line. So discuss, and I mean prepare a bit on the implications of changes in poverty line, issues in poverty line, and how poverty line. I mean, they may ask you about how poverty line is actually established, but rather than what are the implications of changes in poverty line, and how establishing poverty line is itself a big debate in the developmental discourse. So please prepare on it. Second is like last year there was this paradox of poverty. So in any of the questions on poverty, inequalities and poverty is one of the thing which you should know, understand. So inequalities can be of five things. Firstly, they can be of sectoral inequality. Particularly, so if there is 16% GDP, it comes from agriculture, and 45 to 50% population actually thrives on it, and according to national agriculture census or this 67th round, I am not able to get the exact source of the data, but it says that close to 66,000 rupees a year income is drawn by an family which is actually engaged in agriculture. So if it's only like 5,000 rupees a month, so you can understand how sectoral imbalances actually lead to poverty. Second would be social imbalances. In India, again, in GS1, this can be a question that caste and class in India go hand in hand. So the incidence of poverty is like close to 45% in case of STs. It's 35-36% in case of minorities, and it's less than 15% in case of general male. So you got the point that so there is a social stratification of poverty. Similarly, the feminization of poverty. So women have more propensity to get power, to be poor, have limited assets in their name, lack of co-personary rights, glass ceilings, gender wage gap, etc. Every discussion can be there. So again, this can be a question in GS1. This can be a question here also. Similarly, then regional imbalances. How come the national income of Bihar, per capita income of Bihar is actually separated from the per capita income of Delhi, Maharashtra, or the Tamil Nadu? This regional imbalances actually cater to the poverty in India. And even within the region also, you can talk about Bundelkhand and the western UP. You can talk about Marathwada, Vidarbha, and the western Maharashtra, and then discuss poverty from that
and
perspective.
and then connected with the geographical
Yes,
theories which
yes,
Nikhil talked
exactly,
about. Also,
exactly.
I'll add in the wealth and income in social partner. Also, I'll
Hello.
add in the social and wealth income partner ki yesterday I shared this Jan incomes, है ना? How Jan are only 0.5% of the population and they are contributing 28 or 25% of GDP, or they are having 28% of property. So this thing can be discussed in that question also. Can capitalism bring inclusive growth? ठीक है?
Yes,
That can be used there also, and that can be used here also, कि it is not always that minorities are unequal. Minorities are at lower pedestal, they can also do good. ठीक है? So मतलब you must be aware, or you must be prudent enough how to use that information and where it can be used.
exactly, exactly. And like fifth would be of the wealth and income, which was explicitly asked uh, uh, in the last to last year, I in the mains, I guess. But whenever they talk about inequalities, don't limit yourself to the wealth and income. Talk about other inequalities also. They would make your answer more comprehensive and differentiate. And even if like they don't directly ask it. This is how poverty works in it
and
works in.
and also start thinking ki मान लो Jain people have we gave them the skill of business and trade and they developed so much wealth from that. Can any other community do this, है ना? If we give same wealth to some particular community, be it a Muslim, be it Hindu, be it Christian, any other, can they do that same? Can they achieve so much wealth or so much this prosperity? And if not, then what will be the impediments in that process? So this will actually help you enrich your answer in the question of poverty and inequality. कि what exactly perpetuates poverty? मतलब this will help you think कि ऐसा क्या है कि poverty is stopping us and we are not able to generate wealth. What is exactly that? हमें सारे resources मिल भी गए, then we are not able to generate wealth. Why? So likewise, you have to think in these lines. You will develop good answers or good viewpoints ki why people are having wealth and why not, and then you will give good suggestions also ki how to reduce poverty for the India. Then you will give good suggestions if you if you have the understanding of factors for the poverty generation and factors for wealth generation.
Then moving on to hunger, the inequalities and disparities actually exist. So you can say anemia, there is a 52% according to NFHS 5 in women, and around less than 25% in male. I think I'm not able to recall the exact data, but there is feminization of anemia also exists. Similarly, the one dimension which I think they are like about to ask is interlinkages of wash, poverty, and failure of exchange entitlements, which is like of the rights. So hunger lies in lack of rights, the poverty, and the poor wash facilities. So if you are able to like link these things together, you can answer any and every question in enriched manner with respect to hunger. Then
And how, what will exactly you will be doing na? If a question comes on wash, you will bring in the point of this and linking it with
yes,
poverty. If question
yes,
comes on hunger, you will bring in this point and link it with poverty. Well, you will develop whatever question will come, you will have a one solid point everywhere to write it. that that
and
that,
then
that is how interlinkages work.
again of course there would be question on hidden hunger, the protein hunger, or the calorie versus nutrition debate. That is very obvious and you must have like prepared for it. Another thing that I feel like they have already asked about inflation and employment, they have already asked about inflation and human development, they may ask about inflation and hunger as well. So I think in 2024 there was question on food inflation, in why there is food inflation and all. So inflation and food security can also be a very probable question, and if I would have been the examiner and I have like gone through the PYQs and had to make some paper based on the PYQs, I would have definitely bought in this question because it's a very qualitative discussion. And then next would be food subsidy and their impact on hunger. So you need to talk about how food subsidy actually leads to human development and why food subsidy is not a panacea to human development. Again, that are poverty, wash, and rights based approach. You can use this here as well. So I hope like you have got the gist of it. And then one question I would like to discuss here. There are two, three questions in past 10 years on which the behind which this concept was there. It talks you about linking inflation, social sector spending, and human development together. uh, can like I always ask this about, can like someone please come in and explain, can Nandini, would you like to give a try on trying to build a linkages on inflation, social sector spending, and human development? I want all of these three things in a single line.
सर एज इन जब बजट में हम सोशल सेक्टर के लिए व्हेन द गवर्नमेंट स्पेंड्स तो उसकी वजह से इन्फ्लेशन तो होता ही है, इन्फ्लेशनरी इफेक्ट तो लगता ही है। बट
तो
ऑल्दो उसका एम
हम्म,
ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट के लिए होता है, पर उसका साइड इफेक्ट इन्फ्लेशनरी मेजर्स होते हैं। इन केस ऑफ एमएसपी ऑल्सो व्हेन वी सी, उसकी वजह से भी
ठीक है, वन वे टू look at it, or rather say कि to give a bit of like more detail, say what would happen if there is a lower social sector spending, and then how would inflation and human development is impacted?
अगर इन्फ्लेशन
then
होगी तो वी वोंट बी हैविंग फंड्स टू मैनेज आवर फूड बिल, है ना.
Yeah.
If we do not have funds for our food bill, we won't be having nutritious food, and if we do not have nutritious food, then definitely will be our human development will be impacted.
Or rather, there was this question, that the concept that if there is inflation, you would be spending most of your purchasing power on buying essential things like food. And since if there is a lower social sector spending, the human development initiatives like health, skilling, education, there is a lower spending, since there is limited purchasing power is there, and limited state spending is also there. So they together actually impact the health, education, skilling, and overall the social development. I hope like I got the I explained it concisely.
जी जी सर।
Yes. That's it from my side. Please uh, take a good note of the concepts, the points, the phrases, keywords which I have discussed today. These concepts are have multiple utilities. They can be used at n number of places, and actually develop understanding around them to ensure that you are writing nuanced, differentiated, and quality answer in most of the places.
ठीक है, now I'll add how what I extra things I had while preparing notes on civil society, है ना. I'll show. Hmm. See, this thing Nikhil has already talked about. Key, what are the roles of this? How do they contribute to good governance? And a watchdog, advocate, etc., etc., service provider. Now also have some examples for this. For example, inputs to policy making. ASR is responsible for that. ADR with respect to politics is responsible for that. Track to diplomacy. And for service provider, health, hidden hunger, okay, child sex abuse, all these things. Save now when you are writing the evidences for these na evidences as such the thematic evidences, what all topics they are covering, you also need to have some evidences for the names of the organizations. For example, religious organization, business organization, trade organization, farmer, professional, student, tribal, caste, this woman, है ना, and this one is not able to understand. Then the name also this general names, है ना. Why I am saying this, to have a repository of general names, this will help you to write answers, to cook up, to actually cook up and throw the names if you do not have any specific knowledge with you. If you are writing a generally cooking up ki they are a service provider in the education field, they are service provider in the health field, then instead of just writing the argument, you will drop in the names of the NGOs or the civil society associated with health and education. So if we have the names of the organization, it will always help us. Also, similarly with respect to this, or develop the have a repository of latest news, and for example, when I was preparing this farm bills was the latest news the pressure group were creating, है ना. Jat reservation, okay, always I always say that always mention the years also, है ना. When I will mention file farm bills, I'll also mention 2020. When I'll mention Jat reservation, I'll mention 2014 or 15. If I'll mention Jallikattu when, then I'll mention the year. Similarly, likewise all these things, है ना. And then बाकी तो चीजें निखिल ने बताई दी हैं कि हाँ, और also have a general framework कि what all themes they will advocate on, है ना. Gender, environment, traumas, this will help you to generate points quickly. If you do not have anything to write up, then you will generate the points very quickly in the exam if you have general framework, what all things you have to think about social justice question. when the question comes. And then this citizen charter is separate thing. No. This I told you SSG movement, and SSG movement developed the keywords from the PYQs and economic survey. And with respect to hunger and poverty, develop those things, specific case studies है ना, आसाम का very candy है शायद, मणिपुर का nutrition gardens है. Likewise prepare the case studies for the specific issues. Nutrition के लिए क्या case study है, providing the food के लिए क्या case study है, absorption of nutrients के लिए क्या case study है, all those things. And then prepare this general linkages between linkage diagram, cyclic or vicious diagram, virtuous diagram between hunger, poverty, and inequality. Things like
But still, right now, when we're seeing there's a trend of declining poverty, and जो भी surveys आ रहे हैं उसमें ये भी दिखा रहे हैं कि non consumption expenditure ज़्यादा हो रहा है. तो हम इन सब के पीछे क्या लिखेंगे कि सक्सेसफुल स्कीम अभी तक लाइक बॉटलनेक्स लिख रहे थे, अब सक्सेसफुल इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ स्कीम.
मैं बताता हूँ, इसके भी देयर वाज सम पॉइंट्स है ना. आई विल शो इट. देयर वाज अ डॉक्यूमेंट बाय नीति आयोग है ना, which told about all these things. I mentioned when I was preparing for the poverty. There was one reason was the MG Narega part. Due to MG Narega, there was a decline in poverty. There are 3-4 specific reasons mentioned in year. One was the agricultural growth. Okay. Second was the MG Narega was responsible for the declining. Then second was this sanitary. The rest of the things are very general. This financial inclusion was a specific point written in that research paper by the Niti Aayog. So rest of the things are the general you can cook up. For example, these things, nutrition, sanitation, all these are very obvious things. Or also prepare, for example, likewise this left-wing extremism declining trend ka question aa gaya na. So they can also ask this ki poverty is reducing. So what do you think? What actually worked and what actually should we do to reduce it further?
And Nandini, actually, whatever discussion you are having, it's actually discussion related to can capitalism and the social
Exactly.
sector go hand in hand. So market, you need to talk about market mechanisms here itself. Say that even though there is inequality, but the per capita income has actually grown. Even though there is inequality and or the majority of population in construction sector, but there is rising middle class. There is growth of cities. The service sector is actually booming. So you can now. I have told you no. So the market mechanism is the first thing that should come into your mind, and then after that, build everything around it.
So how like it's slightly like reason for reducing hunger and reducing poverty is linked to capitalism also. Before I should link it with government initiatives or
हाँ, सही बात है. अब जनरली क्या होगा कि अब तुमने तो बोल दिया ये वाली बात, क्योंकि you acknowledge this. Most of the people will not. They will generally write the ready-made points, ready-made material points. You have to think on your own, and if whatever reasons are valid as per your logic, you should write them. It is a good. Actually, capitalism has worked because due to capitalism, purchasing power is increasing of all of the people. For example, yesterday I shared na ki internet penetration has increased and it was up to 96-97%, and it is actually a good number. 96-97% is a very good number to have in the rural area or urban areas. So that this actually shows that people are not actually poor. What is actually poor is their habits. They do not know if even if they have. I told you na what is the benefit of self-help group. They tell you how to manage money. Money management they will tell you. Even if I give you 10,000 crores, how to spend that 10,000 crores is up to you. So this is the problem. And then the relation with this inflation and all. Nikhil was talking about inflation, human development.
And again, I mean, I'll be talking this while we talk about GS3 also. The household consumption expenditure survey and the declining uh, rate of savings in India is actually a big cause of concern. I mean, last year also I wrote this in GS-3, and I feel this is new paradigm, new nuance, that every answer around inflation, around savings, around poverty must be there. Since even though there is this private sector contributing to it, but actually the lack of market controls by the state is actually hampering in terms of the inflation, and the inflation is actually curtailing the purchasing power parity. It is actually eroding the savings that actually a middle class has, and erosion of savings would actually lead to lower capital formation, and lower capital formation would mean lower investment in the productive assets, and that actually would mean uh, lower growth, lower development, and you got the point now. So this understanding, this nuance must be put in at some place.
पर सर अगर लोगों की डिस्पोजेबल इनकम बढ़ाएंगे बाय जिससे उनकी पॉवर्टी कम भी हो रही है तो इन्फ्लेशनरी इफेक्ट तो आएगा अगर सरकार
Inflation is
सोशल एक्सपेंडिचर
never one sided. Inflation is always two sided, remember for it. बस केवल purchasing power बढ़ने से, if there is equal supply to meet their purchasing power, then what I would do, if let's say there is purchasing power, what I would do, I would invest more, and I would increase the production. That is actually leads to growth.
ठीक है सर
I I hope you got the trade off.
I did
Yes, yes. Okay, then I
thank you
think that's it for today. See you in the last session for social justice.
thank you
Yes.